Well, hello class. Welcome to Unit 7. I know I'm a little bit late. My apologies again for my absence in the first part of the unit. I was so sick, and it would not have been a good thing for me to try and do any sort of video or communicate in any sort of way other than email. In fact, even last week, although I was recovering, I was so just exhausted and worn out from being sick and just kind of life in general, and we'll talk more about that here in a bit. I encourage you to kind of check out, and I just needed to. I had to spend some time just away, so I didn't respond to emails, and felt a little negligent to some duties at hand, but I knew that everybody else was off, and so I knew that I needed that time, and so I hope that you were able to get some of that time as well. Um, yeah, I was probably the sickest I've been in, I don't know, a decade and a half, maybe even more. It was awful. We've been sick for about 7 weeks straight here in our family. My kids, three of the four, got the stomach flu last week during Thanksgiving break, and my other child, my daughter, my youngest, is on antibiotics for an ear infection. My wife had strep throat, and I mean, just it was crazy. It was chaos. And then this has just been a challenging semester. I think I know for some of you, if not many of you, the same could be said. So life happens, and it gets busy, and it's complicated, and relationships can be challenging, and you have work stuff, right? And so it just gets busy, and so you know we need each other, right? We need, and I think it's fitting as we are talking about adulthood, emerging adulthood, even these really, I think, really important chapters in Anderson Van Hee. And here we are going through adulthood. I mean, it's a silly little saying, but I think that it's, for what it's worth, it's got some merit to it. So adulting is hard, and we talk about adulting, right? So now all of a sudden, adulting is a verb. It's something that we do. Um, but I think about my young kids, and if you have children, they're so just carefree, right? So they're out riding bikes and playing in the dirt, and they're doing school, and they're reading books, and they're running around and playing soccer and baseball and football and doing gymnastics and all these things, and they don't have a care in the world. And I think that we have actually done a bit of a disservice by creating environments sometimes where kids have more concern than they need to. In fact, there was a book that just came out not too long ago, something along the lines, I think, called "The Vanishing Adulthood" or "The Vanishing Adult," and the author makes many great comments and has great insights. One of the things that they say is we have adultified our children, and we've infantilized our adults. And so, even the last couple of chapters that we skipped, when we look at career development, we talked briefly about this a couple weeks ago. This reality that everything that we're looking at as children, my kids, if you have kids, they're watching mom and dad as we go to work. So my wife is a nurse, and she's on call, and so they know that there are certain nights that she might actually be called away, and she may actually have to sleep at her workplace to care for sick kids. And so they're looking at these norms and realities, and they're looking at our home and our cars, and I'm sure making some assumptions about how we got this. The other day we asked them, "Do you think that we're rich?" Um, and so the answer is they vary. Yes, no. Why do you think we're rich? Because we don't have fill in the blank. Well, how do you think you get those things? Well, you have big jobs and you pay lots of money. And yet we forget so often that compared to the rest of the world, we're absolutely, and I would say we're, meaning the collective of Americans for many parts, even the poverty line, right? So we're amongst the richest 1% in the world. Um, when you're making $1 or $2 a day compared to whatever our poverty line is, it's at least $21,000 per year. For many, that's unheard of in different regions. And yet our kids are growing up, and they're having these thoughts and expectations of what it looks like to be a successful adult. And so how do we kind of give appropriate and accurate kind of pictures or snapshots to younger people without trying to adultify them and exposing them to things they don't need to be exposed to, or at least I would even say they shouldn't be exposed to at such young ages. But then the flip side of that is, are we expecting things from adults that we should be expecting? Even, it's interesting, this idea of emerging adulthood is an interesting concept to think about. So the age frame, 7-year age frame from 18 to 25. And so, this was something that, it's not, an emerging adult has not been around forever. Adults have been, kids, adolescents, right? So teens, prepubescents, and then adults. So at 18 years old, you were an adult. You graduated high school. You maybe moved out on your own. You are now old enough to join the military. All these different things. That was adulthood at 18, and now we're saying not so fast. Now there's some new scientific developments, and we look at neurologically speaking, the brain is not fully developed until 25, and so there's all of those factors to think about. But it's interesting that we've now got this new kind of qualifying parameter around these ages of 18 to 25. And so Meg Jay's talk, I think, does some great work in this space. I think it's a brilliant talk. In fact, this is a talk I've been showing in our class for the last many years, and you'll remember that a couple units ago, you had to share 3 artifacts. And I had never seen this video before, and one of the students in class, they found this video and they said that you've got to watch this because they saw just how much it related to our course. And I think in a lot of ways it does. So we've got really important units. We're talking about the lives, or the lives, I guess you could say, of us. Myself and you. So I don't know if you would fit into what we are calling the emergent adulthood phase or the adulthood phase. But I know, given the fact that this is grad school and you have to have a bachelor's degree, and so unless there's these child prodigies in class, but I don't think there are, you're going to fit in one of those 2 molds. But you also, if you think about it, we were all children at one point. We were all teenagers. We were all, middle school folks. We all went through processes. And so even though we don't read those chapters that are leading up to here where we see emergent adulthood and adulthood, my hope is that you will spend time exploring those chapters, because I think there's much great content to be learned in those chapters. But here we are, and we're talking now about adulthood. And so some of the content in this unit, like the Good Men Project, right, role reversal, that's an interesting reality that, back when the economy was really going downhill, the 2007, 8, 9 timeframes, we saw a lot more stay-at-home fathers, stay-at-home men. In fact, there were statistics that showed that although there was probably I don't know if it was an equal amount or what the numbers were as far as male to female ratios of layoffs, at one point there were more females being rehired into the workforce than there were males. And so these are interesting things to think about. So the reversal of roles, it took place because of the Great Recession. Now, it's been ongoing for many, many years. And again, these are stereotypical roles, but these are things that are called out that we see happening in different ways, right? And so then there's the contrast of the Good Men Project, and there's the Bloomberg article, where stay-at-home moms, there's a rise and reversal of these realities, which if you're having any problems with that link, I'm going to find a better one for you. But you get the idea. So it's just an interesting, there's so many interesting dynamics that come into play with adulthood. It gets complicated. You have children, you have work, you have mortgages, you have car payments, and you're buying groceries. And if you think about children, they didn't have those concerns. And I show the video by Sean Acor, The Happy Secret to Better Work, because I think that it kind of sheds a funny light on things when it comes to the work that we do. And then this idea of flow. These 2 chapters, I say with every chapter, every chapters that we're reading, but I love these chapters because they're so relevant to who we are and what we're going through at this point. So I hope that you will find that content to be the same. It's enjoyable, it's meaningful, it's thoughtful, it's thought-provoking, and it gets you really to kind of process through this whole idea of emergent adulthood and adulthood. One of the things I will mention that I want to get to a question is that when you look at the chapter of adulthood, it's really probably the only time that you see any dedicated space in the Anderson and Van Heet text specifically related to career coaching versus that of career counseling. And I think it's toward the end of the chapter, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's an interesting distinction. So a small little section, but it's worth giving some eyes to once again if you skipped over that section. So something to check out. So love these chapters, love this content. Seeing some responses already, really enjoying what you've had to share. I want to get to a question. I saw a really great question with regard to this week's LibTAC chapters. So chapter 10 and 11. I want to speak to this. A lot of great questions, but this was one in particular I thought was really good. It says, LibTAC speaks that is important to explore values and lifestyle of a client in order to assist in decision making. True. However, what if a person's values do not match what they are desiring for their future? Would you simply redirect their values to match their desired future, or redirect their desired future to match their values? Whew. It's like a chicken or the egg question, right? So what do we want to redirect? The person's desires or their values? And I would say, this is my take, but when I'm working with somebody, I hear folks, I hear folks that will talk about what it is that what do they desire to do? What are their interests, their passions, things that they're, kind of excited about? And then what do they desire to do? Or they talk about, I want to work in this industry, but the questions that we ask, they actually point to the fact that their values don't line up with that. And there's a number of different examples that we could give in this, but I think you get the idea. So I think that we sometimes can hold up a light and say, this would be an amazing job. I'd love to work at fill in the blank. But we don't realize that it's maybe out of step with our values. So if there's a faith-based reality, it's probably not appropriate or in our interest to go work at an institution that seems to be, combative or in opposition toward one's faith. That just doesn't seem to make sense. If we are not someone of faith, it just doesn't seem to make sense that it would have a desire to go work at this organization because we don't line up, right? So it's both ways. So I would spend time not necessarily directing anything, but asking appropriate questions. I think that there's so much more power in questions than there is in giving answers, especially when it is that we want to help our clients to realize things, right? So I was using this terminology the other day. I was talking with a friend, actually it was this morning, we were talking about logic and kind of the illogical ways of thinking that people operate in these days. And I was making comment that we can actually catch people with their own words, and we can use those words not in like a combative way, but hey, you just said this, but you just said this, so these things don't match up. So it's in pointing out what it was I think that our clients have said, and then asking questions. You said this, and then you said this. Did you really mean this, or do you really mean this, or what do you actually mean? Because I think that, especially in a state where someone is either unemployed or really kind of looking, they're probably going to come to us for two reasons. I'm unemployed, or I'm looking to move because I'm probably unhappy with where I am. So they're perhaps not going to think logically, and so they're going to say lots of different things. So it's in our best interest then to really intently listen and pull out the little bits and pieces here and there that actually speak to the issue at hand. And then ask appropriate questions. And I think that we can then speak to their answers that are given. But I would say, I don't know that I would necessarily direct or redirect as much as I would ask questions and kind of create pathways for our clients to do the directing or the redirecting themselves. I think it's a great question, and it is something that I've experienced many times, and I'm sure that it's something that I will experience, and you will eventually experience if you haven't already when you're working with clients. So great question. Thanks for that. So there's a great question. There's actually lots of great questions that are taking place this week, so I'm so appreciative and thankful for that. Of course, we've got our readings, so Anderson Van Hee, chapter 15, 16, and the LibTAC, chapters 10, 11. There's no case study. Due to sickness and all that, I haven't had a chance to get your vocation and calling papers back, but will very, very soon. I hope that you have a great rest of this unit. Can you believe it that we have one more unit after this, and then we're done. So we have unit 9, but that's just for you to work on your final projects. So if you have a great week this week, if I can be of service in any way, let me know. I'm here to support you and make sure that you're successful the rest of the weeks in this semester. Have a great week, and we'll see you online.